Welcome to She Says with your host, Stephanie Regalado. She Says guests share stories from their challenges to successes and, most importantly, the journey of womanhood woven alongside the collaboration of sisterhood. From self, love, friends and family, to hot topics, career, and world views, Stephanie and her guests discuss matters with utmost openness and honesty. So let's hear what she says. Here's Stephanie.
Hello, welcome to She Says. I'm your host, Stephanie Regalado. I have Nichole Mischke with me today. A very recognizable.
Oh, it depends on who's watching, I guess.
Yes. So you have recently made a huge life shift, transitioning out of KHQ with your probably a second family. Yes. You guys were all so close and remain.
It was an incredible place to work. Yeah. For 6 years, I was there working on the wake-up show in the morning, and so grateful for that experience. I grew so much, but I just had to say yes to what my heart was telling me to do. Yeah. So it was time to move on in a different direction.
How long had you been in TV?
That was my first and only job in television. So I had graduated from Gonzaga in 2012, but I graduated with a child. And that's kind of the start of my story, is coming from a big Catholic family. Yeah. Nobody in my family had ever had a child out of marriage before, and that was not part of my life plan to have a baby in college, especially at Gonzaga. You don't see pregnant people just walking around campus. And so I dealt with a lot of shame that I put on myself and initially from my family. It ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me. But coming out of college, I very much felt like I just ruined my life, never going to get a job in television. I had majored in broadcasting. Yeah. And so it was almost 2 years later that I actually got the job at KHK. I was working in restaurants at the time. And so it was very much a dream come true to get that job and to just kind of prove to myself that I could do that. So yeah, incredible experience.
And then in the meantime, or I mean through the years then, you have another baby because you have a two-year-old little boy.
Yep, and it's my husband is the same. I married the guy that I was dating in college with our daughter. So we have an 8-year-old and then we have a 2-year-old.
I love that.
Yes.
That's a pretty incredible
We met at Safeway on Hamilton. There's a picture of us, our whole family. But we met on the ice cream aisles. Very romantic.
Oh, I love that. There's going to be a lot of people hanging out in those aisles now.
Yes, it's a great place to meet the love of your life.
Yes. And how long had you been at KHQ?
Almost 6 years. It would have been 6 years in August.
That's right.
So almost 6 years,
And it was just tugging at your heart too.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just get right into it. I very much felt like, so the morning show, it's a great shift if you have kids because you get off early enough that you can kind of be home when they come after school. But it's also a horrible shift if you have kids because you don't sleep. And so I had gone 6 years averaging 5 hours of sleep a night pretty much because my husband works in the car industry. So he's a car salesman, gets home late. It was very, very hard. And I could feel it taking a very physical effect and toll on my body. I felt like I wasn't able to be there for my kids like I knew that I needed to be. And so there was that whole thing. I felt like it's time to be a mom first. But then also in the last year, I started sharing something that I never thought I would ever tell a single person, and that's that I struggled with severe bulimia for almost 10 years. And it was my most shameful secret. My husband was dating me that entire time at my worst. I was
Did
vomiting.
he know?
Never knew. I was a master at manipulation, a master at hiding what I was doing. At my worst, I was vomiting 15 times a day, and he had no idea because I was so set on making sure that no one ever knew what I was doing. Yeah. So no one knew. And it wasn't until I happened to cross paths with another woman who used to work at KHQ years ago. Someone connected us on Facebook, and they're like, you should look up what she's doing. Her name's Virginia Kerr. Maybe people remember her. But I happened to click on one of her videos, and she was sharing her battle with an eating disorder for the first time publicly. And that made me just sob because it was the first time in my life that I had ever encountered somebody in my circle who had struggled with it. And I felt so alone in that battle. I felt like what is wrong with me? Why can't I get this together? You know? And so to finally meet somebody who was speaking out about that, I knew that I needed to connect with her, and that was kind of the start of starting to share. To me, she was a stranger in the sense that I'd never met her face to face, but it was somebody who related and understood my pain, and it made it so much easier to talk about. So,
yeah, how did you resolve or overcome or whatever?
That is probably the biggest question that I get, and it's hard for me to answer because I feel like the right answer to give is that I went through therapy and I did treatment and I did counseling, but that's not my story of healing. For me, I consider anybody who can take the steps to go to counseling and therapy, they are way stronger than I was, because asking for help takes immense courage and immense strength. And I was way too ashamed. My pride was way too big. I was not even going to ask a professional for help. I did try one time to go to a counselor with my daughter, but only went a couple times and ultimately ended up not going back because I felt like, A, this is never going to help me. And I felt like, B, going to therapy is just putting me at risk of getting caught. And I did not want a bill to show up at my house and my husband to say, why are you going to counseling or anything like that? Which is unfortunate because I think that had I given a chance, I could have been helped years ago. But so really for me, what started my healing process was my dad was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer in 2011. And I've never seen suffering like that before, but from diagnosis to his death, it was less than 3 months. And my dad was an incredibly healthy person, at least I thought. Like, he was a PE teacher. He didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't eat fast food. He was at the gym every morning working out. And I did not think he was going to die of cancer. But seeing that happen to him was a huge eye-opener for me on just your health is everything. And I was watching him suffer as I'm looking into the eyes of my daughter, who at the time was 2, and just thinking, like, what am I doing to my body? I knew that I was causing possibly permanent damage that might end up to me or lead to me end up having cancer or something, mouth cancer, esophagus cancer. I mean, all the fears I had to confront them then. And it was then a several-year process of, I basically tried to give myself therapy I listened to YouTube videos and inspirational speakers and a TED Talk every day, and I just tried to fill my head with positive thoughts and positive vibes because I knew that in order to change what I was doing, I needed to change how I was thinking about myself. And I had not been able to value myself in a positive way. I totally related my value to what the scale said. And so I read books and I listened to inspiring things, and that's how I eventually was able to overcome. But I think it was the fear ultimately of death, the fear of what I was doing leading to me ending my life too soon,
and being a mom and having
and needing to be there for my kids. So it was choosing to live for something more than myself, choosing to live for my kids, and just, you know, it's exhausting when you're hiding something like that. It's like an addiction. And I've never done drugs, but when I hear about drug addiction, I feel like eating disorders are very, very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your husband's response when you shared it, and those closest to you?
Yes, so I actually was not able to tell him to his face. I just felt like that's kind of funny. So I felt like I had hid something from him our entire relationship, and I was like, how is he ever going to trust me again? I had actually had a friend of mine who's done this event in Spokane. It's called Pivot Spokane. I don't know if you've heard of it. Incredible. They do it like 4 times a year. It's a story sharing event, and I was asked to share a story at their event on the word promise. And the thing that I could not get out of my head was the toxic promise that I made to myself to chase after perfection. And I just knew that it was time to share. So I went to that event, and that was the very first time publicly I ever shared my story. It was recorded by Spokane Public Radio, which I didn't know at the time. I probably would have said no had I known it was being recorded. But that ended up being such a blessing because at that event, an enormous weight was lifted off my shoulders, and I had several people come up to me and say, I've struggled with the same thing, or my daughter's in treatment right now, or my son is in treatment right now. And that made me realize, like, you're not alone in this. You are surrounded by people who are going through the exact same thing. And the reason that was a blessing to do, because I didn't tell a single person. My husband didn't know I was doing that event. Again, it was all like, I was not ready to tell people that I knew what I was doing, but to say it to strangers was a safe place for me. So after that event, I was able to send my husband in an email. I texted him and I said, I need to tell you something. I cannot say it to your face, so I'm going to send you something in an email. And he thought I was going to say, like, I'm divorcing him or, like, I'm cheating on him. Like, he was, which is horrible. Our relationship is great, but he was, I mean, to get a message like that from your wife, he's just thinking, what could possibly be so bad that she can't tell me? But I was able to send him then the story that I had read or spoke there. And it was a way to get it all off my chest in one breath, and he was so supportive and able to say, you know, I wish you would have told me sooner. I would have done anything I could to help you. But also, the most healing part for me, one of the most healing parts was I could never blame him for my problem. Never could I do that. However, when you are a woman struggling with eating disorders and in a relationship, things happen in relationships. You know, I'm just going to, you know, there's porn on the internet, things like that every man struggles with, right? But when you have an eating disorder or a body image issue, I would internalize all of those little things that were happening in our relationship. And we've grown so much. My husband's very open about his struggles with things, but whenever he would have, and he's totally fine that I talk about this, so just so everybody knows, but whenever he would struggle with something, whether it was me feeling like he was looking at another girl or whatever, I internalized all of that. And he never realized, like, yes, I would tell him it would bother me, but he didn't realize the effect that I was internalizing it and really taking it on as I'm never going to be good enough. I'm never going to be perfect enough. And I just need to get thinner, get more perfect, yada, yada, yada. So there was probably the most healing part of all of this for me was we had gotten into an argument. And it was right after I had told him about what I had struggled with, and I wanted to just scream at him, like, I just want to blame you for this, which is not fair because I had this issue before I met him. But part of me wanted to do that. But I knew I could not put that on him. That was not fair. But he took the words out of my mouth. He said, you want to blame me. You want to blame me for everything that you went through these last 10 years. And he said, don't think for a second that I don't wake up every day and you know, realize my part in your struggle. And he said, I'm so sorry. I wish you would have told me. So that was so healing. Just he got it. Like, he understood. It was not his fault, but he realized that there were things that happened along the way that made it even harder for me to get out of that dark place in my head. So that was huge. I love him so much. He is an incredible man. And to even be able to say that and to even, I mean, I just think that shows and speaks so much to his character.
Absolutely.
So,
well, I was thinking that it was a rush of everything and every moment through those 10 years where he didn't see it. How could you not see something so profound in your most intimate partner in life? And then also wondering all the different ways he could have contributed to. Because I know how people like to internalize. I mean, we want to internalize how we contributed to a particular thing.
Yes.
And so that was going to be one of my questions of how he managed that part of it. But that's just a brilliant, definitely very advanced level of being an adult.
Yeah, it was so healing to hear that because, you know, people with eating disorders, I think that's something that our culture, that's what I've realized in sharing this is how big of a problem this is. And yes, I think it's always been a problem, but and I've had people say this isn't anything new, this has been happening for decades, but at the same time I feel like, you know, I felt pressure in high school and there wasn't even social media like there is today, and I'm now having mothers message me saying my 10-year-old daughter just got sent away for treatment this summer. My 9-year-old daughter. There's a 7th grade boy who's done wrestling who's struggling with anorexia. So it's like this is not an issue that's just specific to college-aged women. This is starting in younger and younger ages. It's men, or it's boys and girls. It's men and women. And I think that we do need to look at what our society is, and this is not a new conversation, but it's just the pressure that we put on our kids and society, and to be perfect, to put this perfect image of yourself out there, and it's just not realistic. And it is putting, just horrendous pressure on our children that can be detrimental to their health if we don't have these real conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And I noticed that with lots of different ways to pressure perfection, whether it's grades, etc., how that can be, how that can create a behavior that doesn't serve them well in the future. My son had a good friend, and his parents were very strict on grades, beyond strict, and watched over him constantly. But he was one of the most sneakily misbehaved friends that my son had. Some of the stories that my son would share, it just astounded me, because I'm like, well, how did that even happen when he has parents like that? But it's when there's just that immense pressure, you have to, it's difficult to find your way through it.
Absolutely. I love that you say grades too, because I feel like there's a couple ways that we, kind of value our kids. Like, are you a good student? Are you a good athlete? Are you beautiful? Right. I mean, I hate to say the beautiful part, but how many times do you hear people go, oh my gosh, your daughter's so beautiful? Right. Or, you say to your child, you are just so beautiful. Or people say, gosh, you're really turning into a tall and lanky thing. It's like, why do we put so much value on that? Right. It can be horrendously detrimental to a child to feel like I don't measure up in any of these areas. Right. And I actually just posted about that on, I think it was Instagram yesterday. Like, how are you valuing your child? Are you valuing them? I tell my daughter now, have you failed at something? Because if you haven't failed at something, then you're not trying something new. Right. And then that's not, we can put value on other things, like overcoming a fear, or failing at something. At least you tried, At least you have the courage. Well, and you see it. I
mean, that's human nature. It's just that as we grow, some of that gets pounded out of us, and all these other expectations that aren't even realistic. I know we have to take a quick break, so we'll chat more about that. We will be right back in a minute or so.
I'm Mary Cuney, and when I became your county commissioner, I knew I wanted to protect our families, our tax dollars, and bring new jobs to Spokane. As a CPA, former Washington State Auditor, and Spokane County Chief Deputy Auditor, I will fix our budget while preserving our quality of life. We all want a county that is safe and prosperous for everyone. That's my goal, and I would appreciate your vote.
Vote to retain Mary Cuney as County Commissioner. Paid for by Friends of Mary Cuney, GOP.
Hi everyone, I'm weather forecaster and assignment anchor at Spokane Talks Online, Colin Pittman, and I am honored to be the host of the new program, Spokane's Youth Spotlight, brought to you by Spokane Talks Online and the Spokesman Review, where we are interviewing and getting to know outstanding youth in our community each month. If you'd like to nominate someone in our community that you think should be recognized, that is doing something great here in the region or has an amazing story, visit SpokaneTalksOnline.com or Spokesman.com and look under Youth Spotlight to nominate. And be sure to tune in each month as we find the best in the Inland Northwest.
Hi, I'm Larry Myers, owner of River Ridge Hardware. Welcome to our garden center here on the corner of Garland and Driscoll. We have fresh plants that come in weekly from all of our local growers. We can make your garden look like our garden. Here at River Ridge, we've been here 30 years. We're your full-service neighborhood hardware store. This is our sprinkler aisle, where my knowledgeable staff will help you put together your sprinkler system so it will make your yard lush green for the spring and summer. This is River Ridge Hardware's rental center, where we provide a multitude of equipment for rent for the do-it-yourselfer. Next time you're working on your home or yard this spring and summer, stop by, say hi, and we'll help you get the project done.
See you tomorrow night, and thanks again for taking care of the painting.
I got this.
Bye.
Weekends are made for painting. Let the experts at Rada Paint take care of you.
Hi. This looks amazing.
Rada Paint, over 80 years of quality, tradition, and trust. Find it in every can.
Welcome back to She Says. I'm Stephanie Regalado. We have Nichole Mischke with us today. She has recently started Uncovered with Nichole Mischke, and we were just talking about some underlying causes or what brings on something such as bulimia.
Right. Yes.
And in your case, you said you had been in a modeling agency.
Yes,
when you were young.
There's a lot of different reasons, I think, for most people who have reached out to me about eating disorders. It very much seems like it's an issue with control. Their life is very much out of control. It feels chaotic. Maybe they've dealt with abuse in many different forms, and that is the one thing they can control, eating. That's not what I resonated with. For me, I had been in high school. I was very much growing up. I was a big girl. I'm 5'10". I was not some skinny thing. I was an athlete, and I was big boned. And I have so many memories growing up of being called the fat kid, all of these different things that very much stuck with me. You know, in like 3rd grade, I had to sit in a 6th grade desk, and it was like just little things like that that just make you feel like I am huge. One of my first memories is, I think I was probably 4 or 5. I was at a friend's house playing. I didn't realize at the time, I'm little, but she was obviously much smaller than I was. And I went into her room, and she had these beautiful dresses, and I was trying on her dresses. And her mom came in the room and said, "Oh my gosh, why are you wearing that? You're going to stretch it out." And she just ripped the dress off of me.
Oh my.
I probably was going to stretch it out. I probably was way too big, but
of all the things to panic about, though.
Right. You know, I didn't know, but that was one of the first moments where I was realizing, like, oh, I'm different. I'm a big kid, you know. So all of those things growing up. Finally in high school, I had started coming into my own a little bit, and I had been approached by some modeling agencies, which to me was like a dream. You know, I had no self-confidence. So to be asked that was so reassuring to me. I mean, it was a huge compliment. But I had gone to this agency to see if they would sign me, and they left saying, "You need to lose another inch in your waist and another inch in your hips. And if you do that, we'll sign you." So I left feeling so happy that I was even considered. Still, though, not good enough, and determined to do whatever I had to do to make that weight come off. So I started a very strict regimented diet. Didn't eat anything bad for me. It was basically like veggies and protein. That's what I ate. And I stayed on that for several months, but it got to the point then that I was then fielding comments from people. Oh, of course, you know, you're not going to eat, or you know, don't invite Nichole to the restaurant after practice. She's just going to eat lettuce. Just comments that felt backhanded, and like I was once again being singled out for not eating normal. And so then I started to eat things that hadn't been in my diet, to eat in front of people to make them think that I was eating normal. But then that's where the tremendous guilt set in of, oh my gosh, why did I just eat that? And that's when I started to make myself throw up. And what people don't necessarily understand with bulimia is, yes, initially self-induced vomiting is painful and it's hard, but eventually it becomes this was my experience. It became so easy. My body would just do it. And I could go into a bathroom and leave in 30 seconds and not make a sound. And that's how it became so easy to then hide. And that's how then my eating disorder morphed into something that I did because I felt guilty, into, oh my gosh, I now actually have control of everything that I'm eating. And I can eat whatever I want and get rid of it without any side effects. So that was my experience with how I got sucked into that.
One thing that reminded me when you talked about when you start realizing that you were a tall girl or a big girl, or you took up more space. Glennon Doyle Melton, one of the things I love that she talks about, she wrote Love Warrior, and then another one. She's phenomenal. She also had eating disorders, but she was also addicted to drugs and all sorts of things. Glennon Doyle Melton, you have to look her up.
Okay, I'm going to.
She's pretty wonderful. And now she's best friends with Brene Brown and all the cool,
all
the cool women in the world. But she says that there is that women are and girls are raised to be ashamed in a sense to take up space in the world. And it's not merely your body size or image, but it's also your voice and your opinions and your thoughts and such, how she has just noticed, that's been one of her observations, that women through the years are, now we're all standing up, and that's the whole Rise Up movement, and having voices be heard, and not even hesitating to sit at a table, any table, even the head of a table, and show up and not be so hard on ourselves about the body suit that we happen to be in at any time, because that's what a friend, I've been a roller coaster weight person for a while. I'm getting emotional. But a friend of mine, Amber, said, like, when you have cancer, you don't say you are cancer. So when women are carrying extra weight, they say, I'm fat. She's like, you aren't fat. You have extra weight on your body, but you aren't that.
Right.
And we women that have had challenges with weight know that it comes off and it comes on. And sometimes I think one of my superpowers is packing on the pounds, but then when I flip that switch, I can also take it off. But it's not always in the most healthy ways, and it hasn't been sustainable, just from all sorts of other things. I need to dig in deeper to reading and TED Talks and everything like you said, because it's so strange, because the very things that upset you the most about it are the things that keep you in it. The shame of it, which is an odd thing. A lot of times when you're feeling down about, if you're overweight and you're feeling down about it, you're driven to food. And that's the one place you shouldn't be. You know you shouldn't go to, but then you're going there, and then you're like, I'm just a lost cause, and I'm out of control. Instead of dealing
with our emotions, we mask them with whatever it is. And for a lot of people, that was food. For me, it was too. I mean, bulimia went hand in hand. Then it turned into binge eating, because I could eat whatever I wanted to, and but it's, you know, I've had some people say, well, I struggle with binge eating. I'm jealous that I'm not able to make myself throw up. And that breaks my heart, because there is nothing glamorous about that. And it becomes, when you are struggling with any sort of eating disorder, it overwhelms, it takes over your entire life. That's all that you can think about. You know, my husband would leave for work and I would start just eating, you know, like horrible. I mean, I have very, very shameful parts of this that initially I was like, oh, well, I don't have to say that. But just come out and say you just had an eating disorder. You don't even have to say it was bulimia, because to me, bulimia is the most shameful, disgusting of all the eating disorders. I would have rather said that I had anorexia. How bad does that sound? That sounds horrible to say, but to be honest, that's what I was thinking. It's like, you're making yourself look like you're out of control. But things like, in college, I would go and raid all of the kitchens in my college dorm in the middle of the night and steal other people's food. Like, that's horrible. That's what that's what it drove me to do. I would keep paper cups in my car so that I could hang out with friends, and then vomit into a paper cup and throw it away at a gas station or something, so that nobody knew. I mean, I had all of these ways to, you know, to hide what I was doing, basically.
Well, it's like you said, the shame keeps it so, we become so protective of the things that shame us. Actually, there was a long time where I couldn't even admit that my brother hanged himself outside of my small community where it happened. When I got into the real world and I talked about the brothers that I had lost, I've never ever shared this ever, but I would say he died in a car accident. I was so ashamed by the stigma of, of suicide. And like you're saying, the stigma of these different things. So you work so hard to protect that shame that's eating you alive. And then you have this moment where you share your story, and suddenly it's like you said, the weight just falls right off. The pressure of that, and I mean, in a social society, it's a shame that we keep anything that private that could hurt us, when people are eager and want to share. And I mean, there's a risk, of course. Some people tell me with my editor letters that I'm just very brave about, or very courageous. I've gotten exhausted about trying to hide certain things that I wish had not actually been a part of my life.
But I get goosebumps hearing you say that, because like, that's the perfect example. You say, you know, I've never shared this before, but like, you think that you're protecting yourself
right.
by not letting your skeletons out of the closet, but you are weighing yourself down and preventing yourself from actually living the most fulfilling, the most happy life. Like that is why I've started the Uncovered with Nichole Mischke. I want to uncover stories of shame, whatever shame looks like in someone's life, because it is debilitating. You know, I just did an interview with a woman who struggled with opioid addiction. Oh, God. And she's never had a single person in her entire life ever admit that they've struggled with the same thing. But we know the opioid, the prescription drug addiction problem. There are people everywhere who are struggling with that. There are mothers, there are soccer moms, there are people everywhere struggling with that. She's never heard anyone speak about it before. That is something I need to edit. Tomorrow I'm talking with Aaron Stark. He is the man who courageously came out several months ago, and said that he was almost a school shooter. Imagine the courage to come out and say, I was almost a school shooter. He literally tried to get an assault rifle, and he was either going to go to a food court or he was going to go to a school, and he was going to try to kill as many people as possible and then kill himself. And the shame of that darkness, you know, not wanting people to know that you've been to that dark place. But speaking about it is so healing, not just for the people who share their story, but for the people who get to hear it, because so many people who hear your story will finally realize, like, I'm not alone.
Exactly. You create a space of possibility. When you create that space of possibility with pure authenticity, you allow other people to step in that space with you and understand that. I had someone reach out to me the other day, and they said that they know that I wouldn't judge them for something. Just because if anyone can be judged, we know it's me, and I'm just spilling it all out all the time. They're like, okay, she's a good one because she's crazy. She can't judge a single person. No, none of us can, actually.
But in that, it's like, that is validation right there. People feel safe with you. They feel like they can be their authentic selves with you because you've been authentic yourself. It's a beautiful thing.
It is a beautiful thing. It's just too exhausting to hold it back, and like you said, it holds us back from living our true potential. And granted, we can layer our lives all sorts of ways to fancify it and facade it. Truly, we can. I mean, there's not a human on this planet, I don't think, that's had some aspect of a facade that they've worn at some point throughout their life. And I think, and I'm a big proponent of helping create awareness and understanding and dropping the shame barrier, because shame is a barrier for domestic violence, because that's a lot of the ways our sisters get stuck in situations where they don't feel like, I mean, that's like, how did I get here?
That's
and
huge.
I can't share it with anyone, which perpetuates this situation and intensifies the dangers of that situation. So the more that we can really be free with one another and understand, and if someone's going to judge you, it's like the rock in the river. You just go right around it, because they obviously aren't developed enough or far enough in their journey of adulthood to really be able to see inside themselves, to be able to understand. I think when everyone can see the spectrum of possibility is the same in all of us. And I always say this, we're all just dancing along that line at different times and different places, but we all have that same spectrum of possibility.
I love that.
And once we can really identify that within ourselves and see the darkest dark, horrid dark within us, and the high on the mountain singing from the rooftops victories, we can understand that everyone has that, and we do too. So we can be more sensitive to others.
And you can almost start to then look back on your struggles and the things that you've endured, and in a way feel grateful that you've been through that.
Totally.
Because you said, like, you wish that certain things hadn't been part of your story, but the fact that they are, you can now see how you're able to provide healing for other people through your pain that you've experienced.
Absolutely. Well, we have to wrap up.
Okay.
Sadly.
That went by so fast.
I know. They are going to get the hook out and rip us off this set. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
For your courageous move to help others. I mean, that's the greatest thing. I can't wait to see more of yours. I did watch your other one with, Virginia Kerr.
Yes.
Brilliant, and I look forward to lots more of those.
Well, thank you, and you too. You're doing the same thing, and I love women like you.
I hear you, sister. Thank you so much for tuning in to She Says. We will see you next week.
She Says is produced in Spokane, Washington by SpokaneTalksOnline.com, which is solely responsible for its content.